and we should be able to see people coming in, assuming we have people coming in. Of course, you never know with these things, do you? Busy time of year. But oh no, we've got people. Stuart, so it's second in. Nigel was first. Well done, Nigel. Hi everyone. Yeah, people coming in quite fast now. If I'm just going to sort of let people come in, so welcome to the first few. You'll see an icon down the bottom with a chat box. If you did want to say hi and test that facility before we go any further, we'll know that's working. That'd be really handy. If you just wanted to say your name and oh, evening both. There's Jane. Hi Jane. Thanks for that. So that seems to be working. That's good. And Nigel. Hi guys. Looking good, Luke. I didn't get one of those. They started already. So right. So yep, first 20 or so people are in. So I'll start going through a few house rules very slowly, just to allow more people. We're expecting a bumper Christmas crowd. Is it Christmas? Festive crowd tonight. So we will go through a few bits and then we'll get started in earnest shortly. We'll just let a few more people come in. Thanks for joining us to everyone who's already in. This is the latest in the series of Meet the Don's Trust Board sessions. You may have been to one of the, I think this is about our 6th or 7th now. Luke and I did the first one back in, I think it was June. They're monthly sessions, and the idea is to engage with members really, 2 at a time, or it can be 3 at a time. It just happens to be 2. As I say, we did the first one back in June, followed by, I think it was Hannah and Jane, and then I think Ed and Anna and Mark and Tim. And it's back to us again. We come on the rota's almost exhausted. As you know, we've got a new look board, so we'll be announcing who's next at the end of tonight's session. So let's see how many people we got in. We've got about the first, I think, near 30. So yeah, I'll start going through a few house rules and then we'll get things underway. So thanks to everyone who's responded in the chat box. That looks to be working. That is for chatting to each other amongst ourselves, yourselves. But if you did want to ask a question of Luke or I, there is a Q&A icon down the bottom of your screen. If you click on that, it opens up a box. That's where you can ask questions. Please keep them to sort of 1 at a time generally. We'll try and answer some as we go. We've been sent in some advanced questions rather. They're not that advanced, and we'll be answering them as we go. We'll be looking back over the what's been an eventful year, looking at highlights, lowlights. We've got a couple of guests coming up as well, so it should be a good hour or so we're looking at. So okay, we've got quite a few people in. I'll just go through that one more time. We'll get started. So okay, so I'm Graham Stacey. I'm the hopefully glamorous assistant, although I didn't get a glamorous in the chat, for the evening, alongside my co-glamorous assistant, which is Luke Mackenzie, who you should see on the screen, who's come as an elf this evening. To elf drink Peroni? I don't know. I thought elves were more anyway. Cheers. So yes, thanks again to everyone who sent their questions over in advance. We'll be getting through those over the course of about the next hour or so. Thank you for joining us. As I've mentioned, a few house rules. Please use the Q&A icon, which opens up a question and answer box to send us any questions. We'll try and answer them as we go. If you want to chat, is that a pint of Baileys? Yeah. What else? Yeah, we've had our first question, and I think I was able to answer it. That's about the only one I'll be able to answer tonight. So, yeah, cheers. Pint of Baileys. Baileys and baubles tonight. Right, so that's the Q&A box, as you may have just seen used. Please keep your questions polite, no swears. It's festive season. We will be recording this session and making it available on Pro Boards to members initially over the next couple of days. As I said, we'll be keeping an eye on the Q&A box. We do have a couple of guests coming to join us later in the show. Thanks as ever to Hannah and to George, Hannah Kitcher and George Jones, who are behind the scenes making things happen that wouldn't happen without them. Certainly not if I was in charge of pressing the wrong button. I think that's it. We seem to have most of our participants in now. So we've got quite a lot to get through. I think before we get started, I want to ask, Luke, you're dressed as an elf and you're quite a jovial person in general, but you're quite mean online. What's all this about? This is a question from me, by the way, not that one's been sent in.
Mean online, that's a bit harsh, isn't it? I was saying we were talking before, weren't we, yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, sometimes I just think you need to go on and fight a bit of fire with fire. So I thought we got quite a lot of grief over the Broncos stuff. And actually, I think a lot of it was, certainly I see how people reacted and how they took away some of the lines that were in the 15th version of the copy that we ended up sending out. And actually, that wasn't in the original draft stuff. And I've held our hands up and said our mistake.
Yeah,
I think there's a few conspiracy theories going around, and some of it's just nonsense. So I'm quite happy to tell people it's nonsense, to be honest. And
it's a good. I mean, it set the record straight, as we wanted to do by in that version.
It's engagement. Me calling you an idiot is probably not the best way of doing it, but
there's all different kinds of engagement.
It's
and you've just been elected for 2 years, so I suppose it's
I think I probably would have done it before election.
Yeah, I think you would.
But yeah, no, it's. I hope it's always taken in the meaning I intend to. Yeah,
and it's been a year of highs and lows, shall we say, 2020. So we're going to look back, I think, over the year that was 2020, and we're probably quite glad to see the back of in most ways. But there've been some highlights and stuff. So yeah, if we start at the beginning, there's another type, talking of getting grief online and so forth, and I wasn't on the board, I was just an innocent bystander, but almost a year ago and a few days, I guess, it was that AGM, and we were told that we would be possibly relegated into non-league and all sorts of things. There was a former CEO stood up and said, yeah, it's not looking good, advised us what he advised us. The head of the PLC did similar. We got a PowerPoint presentation, and so I was a fan. I wasn't sworn in yet. I was standing at the back. But how was that? That probably wasn't the highlight of the year for you, was it? What's your take on that? Because we've come out the other side now, hopefully, and all that. But what was your sort of take on how that?
In a strange way, it's one of the better things that's happened.
I
think it really brought the fan base together. And just showed the power of what we could do as a group of fans.
Yeah.
When you look at the end result, the end result's been fantastic. In terms of we've just crossed over £5.5 million now. Through the Dons Trust bond. It's helped complete the stadium, so we've got that over the line pretty much. We'll tell a bit more in a bit. And so and do you know what? Some of the stuff that came from the Dons Trust bond, so the big WhatsApp groups, the kind of volunteers, the people giving out leaflets, etc., was a fantastic lead into, because nobody saw what was coming with COVID, etc. And that led so fantastically into the start of DLAG and how that helped. And Don's local action group's been fantastic. And the foundations of that, weirdly enough, came from the Dons Trust bond. So yeah, it was a busy time last Christmas, actually. So
Plough Lane bonds.
Sorry, the Plough Lane bonds. Yes, indeed, that's the one. What I was going to say was it was actually a really busy Christmas period, because the guys that initiated it were doing a lot of work. They needed some support from some of the Dons Trust people. I mean, we were literally on phones to lawyers at 11 o'clock at night, which is pretty unheard of, because the kind of key was to get it launched ASAP. And it was fantastic, and those guys have done amazing. And I think it shows in the election, actually, that Charlie and Zav have kind of been brought on board and wanted to get involved in the Dons Trust spot.
You realise you've basically covered the year in review now.
Yeah. Well,
go back a bit.
We haven't talked about football yet. Do we talk about football? Are we allowed to talk about football?
I don't know. Can we get to do that? Maybe in a bit. But yeah, you've touched on it, as it was a real low point, I would say, as a fan standing there at the back. And I'm sure for you, sort of having to sort of, it wasn't anyone's happiest time. But as you say, great things happened. The Plough Lane bond. which I've looked up and I've written down as of this morning, because it's had a little surge over the festive period. It's on 5,508,5,000. Oh God, I'm turning into Priti Patel. It's 11 hillions, which is roughly 5.5. It's over 5.5 million. 5,508,581. Yeah, whatever that. Over 5.5 million, which is amazing. And as you say, that all came from, really, if we hadn't sunk that to that low point, I suppose this would, maybe that was the motivator we needed in some ways, and a great set of fans got together. As you say, we're working around the clock with lawyers and stuff, launched that within a month. I remember going to the launch night at I don't know what it's called now, but it was Watershed. It'll always be Watershed to me. And it was like, it was a roll call. There were former players, current players. Glyn was there, Terry Brown was there, Will Nightingale, Jack Redoni, Anthony Hartigan, Peter Fear was there. So I think there was free beer. There was definitely free pizza. It was amazing. And everyone getting up and doing this, but it was really sort of an inspiring night. And it was, I remember not being able to shake people's hands and sort of saying, because I got to do a little speech, and it's like, how do you follow those guys? You just can't. So it's just like, I want to shake your hand. But that was when COVID had just slightly kicked in, and the first thing we were told was probably don't shake people's hands. So it was like, well done, guys, you've done an amazing thing. But yeah, up to 5.5 million now. So that was amazing. But then COVID came. So how do you? And then the season ended. What's your take on how we handled that? I suppose. Because some people would say it suited us ending the season.
It did suit us. It did suit. Without a shadow of a doubt, you can't get away from the fact that it suited us, and it did trade me a bit of a disservice. However, I genuinely believe we would have stayed up.
Yeah.
I think the start we'd had, what was it, 1 or 2 points after 10 games? So then the turnaround that we had when Glyn came in was just fantastic. We were on the up, and I had every confidence we would have stayed up anyway. Hand on heart, would I have voted to end the season if we were in the relegation zone? Probably, because I just thought it's the right thing to do. I'm not even. Yeah. I'm genuinely not convinced we should have kicked off this season as it goes.
No, with you on
that. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? But at the time, yeah, Tranmere were fighting for their lives to try and stay up, and I kind of felt desperately sorry for him because it was just so unprecedented.
But it was kind of we did the maths, didn't we? And as a club, it wasn't like based on wasn't what we based our decision on. We'll stay up, great. Because even then, we didn't know how there were points per game or where we are or whatever it was. They didn't, obviously being the EFL, they didn't really announce systems and things in advance of things happening. But we worked out, I think it was about 500,000, like legitimately, because they were talking about COVID tests every day for every player before they went to training and a game. And it was a 7 day, or I think it was 6 days.
I can't remember how much it was, but yeah, it was a ridiculous amount of testing.
Yeah. And
privately testing as well that we'd have to pay for.
Yeah. And then obviously you've got the player health. So and it was a bit more unknown than it is now. I mean, it's looking not great at the moment, but back then we didn't know how bad it was. And you're getting the numbers every day. So I think it was a legitimate decision. And of course we stayed up, but obviously we can't talk about COVID without talking about the Don's local action group. And we just talked about how something really bad spawned something really good. But I mean, I don't know if we should talk about DLAG, but we do have a special guest with us, don't we?
Bring him on.
One of the co-founders of Don's local action group. Are you with us, Cormac?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
This is really good prep for school next week. Thank you.
Right, well, this is Cormac. I'm going to pronounce this wrong, aren't I? Van der Hoeven.
My dad's on the chat. So my Irish family say I say Cormac wrong, and my Dutch family say I say Van der Hoeven wrong. So I can't say my name.
We'll call you Dave. So, well, welcome. So you're one of the co-founders of Don's Local Action Group, which has done amazing things, and we can't obviously praise highly enough. And it's just a massive thing now. You won a fairly big award the other day. I think you and Marcus Rashford. So where did it start from?
Do you know what? I was just thinking about just that. And it was after the Bond party you talked about, and it's Tunnel 265.
That's right.
And Graham, if you ever need free entry on a Saturday night, just mention my name on the door. You'll be VIP. But
I'll take you up on that.
on a slight tangent, Xavier and Craig, we went to Smash afterwards to play some table tennis, and then the three of us just came back to my flat with my friend Rob, and we were just having late night drinks and just talking Wimbledon stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing that I was around Xavier's energy and Craig's, just living off the high of that project. Anyway, it comes to less than 2 weeks later, and Xavier on the 16th on the main WhatsApp thread sent out a message. What are we going to do to kind of harness this energy in the community? And as you guys on the Don's Trust board are about to find out, and you already know, when Xavier has an idea, wow, he hits the home run. But what he does really well is he utilizes people's energy. He then I got straight back to him and said, well, during the school holidays, children really struggle for food meals, so we could do something around that. Craig gets back saying we can do something around the old at the old Ruts as a hub. And from the 16th, within 5 days, we were mobilized and we were ready for action by March the 21st. But it's just a real tribute to just how you sometimes need to have that get up and go attitude.
Yep. And I mean, that's an amazing turnaround. But then what, how did, it really took off so fast. How did you get to that next level from having an idea, sort of saying, let's make it happen, and then it becoming massive?
So Xavier was the substance, he was the constant, and he was very much, it's actually not a good analogy to say he was the prime minister in number 10. That might not be a good analogy. Let's say he was set behind his computer, he was the constant, he was controlling everything. We had Craig at the Old Ruts, our first food hub. Mm-hmm. My job in the operation was, right, Cormac, just here's a table, stand up, get food, generate food. So he would say, have you spoken to the store manager at Morrison's Wimbledon? Yeah, absolutely. I've set it all up. Yeah, hadn't actually had a conversation with the manager there. I just turned up and then had to blag it. The next week, I turn up at Tesco New Malden with Craig at 6 in the morning, at 5:30 to set up. And the deputy manager was on duty. I told Xavier all week, I've had the meeting. They said it's okay. Plonk the table there. The manager comes in at 7, a massive row. I said, you can't kick us out. We're doing our bit for the community. You want to kick us out? We will get you on the TV tonight. And anyway, one by one, I was Xavier's Rottweiler around Southwest London, from being in Merton. And then when we went to more and more stores, we had more and more volunteers, which meant we could expand to Kingston and to Wandsworth, which is the natural ground of the AFC Wimbledon Foundation, who we worked with throughout. And what really, and the whole time in this, Craig was the constant with the Old Ruts. We then expanded to Kingsmeadow as our second food hub, and then a church centre in Wandsworth. So by that point, we were in every pocket of Wandsworth. My particular favourite moments are being around Wimbledon Park, where some of the local residents had to very reluctantly come to the table at Waitrose Wimbledon and say, so you're the football fans? Yeah. You're the guys who are moving into Plough Lane? Yeah. Can I just apologise for the 5 years of opposition I gave you before moving into Plough Lane? So that was, particularly enjoyed those moments and conversations around town.
So Rob Crane's just asked, actually, first live question. How many volunteers does DLAG have now?
Oh, it's measured in the thousands. It's that classic example of how we have some volunteers who maybe do 1 or 2 shifts, and those efforts are always acknowledged because circumstances are changing. But what's phenomenal is there's Caroline Lee, who sits behind me and my dad. It sat past tense because we've left Kingsmeadow, and I just meet her at a shift at Morrison's, and then you're meeting people who've never met the football club. They'll be on a shift at Balham Sainsbury's, and they've got locals asking them questions about season tickets, about debentures, as if they're veterans of many a year at AFC Wimbledon. I know Jane Lonsdale did shifts for us at Worcester Park, Iceland, the new co-chair, and that's one of the extremities we had. I've done shifts with Hannah at Tesco New Malden, but it's measured in the thousands, and it's really staggering.
Great. One last question. What's next for Don's Local Action Group? The world. You've got a duty now.
joke about that in terms of, so we're very aware of, we've got the anniversary week coming up around March the 21st. And so we've got big plans around a fundraising push.
Brilliant.
Right now, we've just had to do, you know, isn't necessarily my strength when you have to do the substance. You have to sit down and plow through the policy, making sure we're aligned to all the rules alongside the foundation. But we're definitely sat on a very special formula here in terms of how, you know, for all the cynicism you have around football fans, you know, we could be very simple and say it was 3 football fans who had this idea. It was rather a WhatsApp group on the back of the Plough Lane bond that allowed us to generate this energy. We've all played to our strengths. Xavier utilized my strengths, he utilized Craig's strengths, and then Craig utilizes a whole volunteer base below him. And so it sounds funny, but there's a formula here where, you know, that we could spread out to the whole football community, the whole sporting community here in the UK, but very much in Southwest London in the short to medium term. It's about addressing acute poverty in our communities that, you know, we've been really staggered by. If on day one it was a COVID response, it's really now morphed into addressing acute poverty in our communities.
Brilliant, brilliant, amazing stuff, amazing. Thank you to Cormac, Xavier, Craig, as we've just learned, thousands of volunteers who've done amazing stuff. We couldn't ask for a better PR push as a club, I don't think, than the Don's Local Action Group. So thank you. But before you go, can you just show us your jumper? And I'm glad you tucked away your underpants that were on display earlier, but nice.
It was
nice. Very
and
nice.
by the way, thanks for the efforts for you guys on the Don's Trust board. I know how many, it's so incredibly taxing, and I know how stressful performances must be to analyze right now when it's 1 point in 15. But you guys enjoy that stress, and we'll keep doing our job.
You're well out of that one. Thanks very much, Cormac. Thanks to everyone at DLAG as well. Thanks very much. So, yeah, sticking to some sort of chronological order, is that a word? There was COVID, then the end of the season, DLAG. Then suddenly we were told there was probably a new season. Then suddenly we needed to sign some players and so forth. So that was an interesting time, wasn't it? It was. People often ask us about our budget, our playing budget, and so forth. What can we share? What should we share, and what can we share? And what was our budget, and how did we go around getting this squad that we got, really?
Yeah, that was fun, wasn't it? So what the club did, and they did really well, and Tom, financial controller at the time, did exceptionally well with just to prepare budgets to show to the Don's Trust board, which showed what our budget would be in the impact of no fans for the season, fans returning. So we'd heard various kind of time scales of when fans could return. Yeah. So they were initially looking at October, so early October, and then that kind of slipped to, we were probably looking December. Then we'd had talk of March at some point. Yeah. I think it was probably before December. So, you know, it'd been real ups and downs. So they prepared several scenarios for us, which just said, this is our budget. These are the type of players we can sign if based on X, Y, Z scenario. Yeah. And I think prudently we took a good decision. At the time, we weren't sure, but looking back, it looks like an excellent decision, which was just to say, well, we're not going to have fans in for the whole season. Mm-hmm. Let's just kind of go with a worst case scenario. Yeah. Which, the inevitability of that leads to a lower playing budget, certainly than I've ever seen since I was on the board. And I'd hazard a guess it's probably the lowest we've ever had in League One. Yeah, which is hard to. People ask us for specifics. Yeah, they do. I'm all for that, and I know you are, for sharing things with the owners as much as possible. And I do, but this one I do kind of get why we can't always be specific. Yeah, do you know what? I think different Don's Trust boards are going to have slightly different attitudes, I think it's fair to say. And I see this one, the current one, albeit we've had one kind of semi-meeting that went quite quickly. We've had a frank talk around how much more open we could be or should be. Yeah. And that's a bit of a cultural shift, and it's not something that happens overnight. You know, we're not suddenly going to go, oh, brilliant, our budget is this, and all our players are earning this, and everything else. No. But I think there is a desire to be a bit more open, and it's no surprise when we sent out the Broncos stuff that one of the big questions that came back, Craig himself, who we were talking about earlier, actually emailed in and just said, well, that's all well and good, but I need to know how much it is. What's it worth to us?
Yeah.
And we got that from several people. It wasn't a one-off.
Come back to Broncos, actually.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. So that was it is interesting, and it's how much we share and not share. No, I don't think it makes a blind bit of difference, if I'm honest. I think football people, in inverted commas, will tell you never to share your budget. I'm not convinced a player signs or doesn't sign based on the fact that you know things are known. So we will see. It'll be interesting to see the next year or so how this Trust board reacts to that sort of thing. And maybe
we've had a few. Well, we'll come on to the new board. We have had first few meetings already, which is almost unusual in itself at this time of year. But we'll come back onto that. So we signed players. We started the season without fans. We played at QPR for a while, but then we needed somewhere to play, and that was in the pipeline, that was on its way. Now you've been on the stadium committee for a while. Any hiccups along the way, or has it all been smooth?
Plain sailing. What are you on about? Look, it's just, I don't think any big construction project goes smoothly at the best of times. I think in a COVID world where just with everything that happened with supply chains, manufacturers shutting down, being unable to get goods, not having all your staff members on site, not having all the builders working at full capacity, etc. It was obviously going to cause massive problems.
Which seamlessly segues onto a question that was sent in from Tim Stevens, in fact.
Yes.
Not that I've written down in front of me, seamlessly segue into, but he's asked, he says, Plough Lane was supposed to be handed over as completed in early December 2020, this year. Did it happen? I think you just touched on the answer.
No, it didn't. So we will announce when it happens. It was meant to be end of October, that slipped to December, and the latest date now we've got is probably in about 2 weeks' time. So middle of June. Anybody who's on Instagram might have seen some pictures they put up in the last day or two. We're now fitting out the kiosks, so in the West Stand, so they're being put in. So we'll have the sort of food and drink places up and running shortly, which will be grand. Yeah. When the handover happens, I think it's not to be confused with a full stadium handover. The whole place isn't going to be ready, and it's not bells and whistles, but it will be good enough to start running. So I know the next question, because there were several questions on that list.
Yeah.
The next question was around when are fans allowed in. So
crowd safety.
Take away COVID, tier 4, etc. We were looking at letting fans in ASAP, which was the sort of, I think the first game was, I want to say Sunderland is on the 16th, isn't it? Is that right?
We're looking at a test event, aren't we?
Yeah, so we were looking, so we had the problem of, we're playing Sunderland on the 16th of Jan. That could potentially have been used as our test event, because hopefully we would have got the handover and the sign off by then. But that then meant that the first proper game, and I say proper because there'd only be 2,000 fans in, but the next proper game would be on the 30th of January, where we potentially could have 2,000 fans in, and that's against a team from Bucks, who shall not be named. So
whether that's desirable,
that doesn't seem ideal. So what we were looking at is possibly, is there a chance we can fit a test event in before the 16th? So just to get a, whether it's a youth team game, a ladies game, heck, it could even be Don's Trust Board versus a few fans or something. But
I insist. I
want to play on Plough Lane. Yes, I want to be on that pitch. I've seen you play football, mate. It's not pretty.
It's not going to happen.
I think I'd be like Gareth Graham. I probably wouldn't leave the centre circle. I'd be the kind of midfield enforcer. But we're not going. It doesn't look like that's going to happen anyway due to COVID and tier 4.
Yeah,
so that's a bit of a moot point at the moment. But that was the intention.
Yeah, and I think that covers the other question from Tim was, are there plans in place to enable season ticket holders to visit the ground to see that view from their seat? And I think
yes, 100%. That is definitely a, we want to do tours, but again, tier 4 COVID, we need to see what happens and how that evens out.
Yeah.
It will come down to who can do it, who can attend, who can give the tours, how many people can be in a group, you know, just again, it's all guesswork. But yes, the intention would be, yes, we would do that ASAP, especially if people aren't going to be allowed in for, you know, the next 3, 4, 5 months. If we're actually allowed out and we're allowed to go and have a look around the stadium, then let's bring it on.
Definitely. So that's kind of brought us up to where we are. Obviously, we've played there, but with no fans. But was that what was your highlight? Was that first game? Was that the highlight for you? We talked about some low points and some high points, but what was your personal highlight?
Yeah, so I was lucky to go to the first game, and I'd been to one game at QPR, and I'd been a ball boy at QPR, believe it or not. So a COVID ball boy. You effectively had to anti-back the balls. So I hadn't enjoyed it, and I didn't enjoy QPR at all. Bless them, they were great hosts by all accounts, but
yeah,
it was a surreal experience. And going to Plough Lane was nice to see the place in action and up and running.
Yeah,
it's not going to be home until everybody's there, right?
Absolutely,
without a shadow of a doubt, and it just felt so surreal. It was nice for me because I'd obviously done a lot of work on the committee, just looking at kind of how we're doing, but even then it was so restricted.
Yeah,
what I could go to, what I could see, but I identified a few things we've been talking about and a few problems that we needed to overcome. So we had a pigeon problem at the back of the stands. I think that's been rectified, hopefully. So little things like that, which kind of really helped and took away. However, I think the best thing we did, and it sounds silly and it's quite a small thing, but I think for a lot of people it probably meant a lot, which was we discussed, I can't remember how it kind of came to fruition, but we discussed about the first game and getting the free iFollow codes for our supporters, and especially the ones that were struggling, you know, financially, maybe lost jobs, etc. And to be able to get, I think we ended up getting out about 300 codes.
You should know, because if I remember rightly, you were actually emailing every one of them individually with a code and a note. So you should know how many it was. I think it was 300.
We got to about I got to about 3:30 a.m. or something like that, and I just was like, "Wow, this is quite tiring now." And I picked it back up about 8 o'clock in the morning. So everybody got an individual email. Everybody, I probably could have learned how to do mail merge in a quicker time than I spent individually emailing. However, I personally felt it was important to email people individually because there were quite a few stories on there. You know, some people just said, "Can I have a code?" and that was fine. But other people gave some real individual stories.
Oh yeah.
You know, job losses or tough times they were going through.
Yeah.
And I felt it was important for us to, and me doing it as just to do it as a personal response.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with you. That was a good thing.
Really proud of that. And thank you to you, because you were the one that smoothied up to the EFL and kind of managed to get hold of a lot of codes of a lot. Or they didn't charge us as much as we thought we were going to get charged.
No, which is very kind of them. Thank you, EFL.
And we don't often say that.
No. Praise where it's due. Praise where it's due.
And also thanks. We had quite a few fans. What was lovely as well. And we had some fans in some better positions who also offered to purchase voucher codes for less fortunate.
That was really touching, actually. I remember I was getting lots of social media messages when, you know, we were putting it out there that, you know, if you do need it, then do get in touch, kind of thing. And we asked people who didn't necessarily need it to hold fire for a few days to let those more in need get in there, kind of thing. And I was just getting social media messages like saying, "Let me, you know, I can get a couple, I can cover a few more." And it was amazing. And it's just, our fans are the best. I think I might have mentioned that before, but they really are, aren't they? And that was I remember that I agree with you, actually. That was a real high point. I was going to say the Plough Lane Bond, actually, but for very similar reasons as a high point, because to me it showed what happens when the club and the fans work together. And I hadn't been on the board until that point, and it was kind of I joined as this was kind of happening, and it was just amazing. It was just fantastic to see what we can achieve in a matter of weeks. And I think it is the biggest football bond ever. You know, it's probably got a place in some record book or whatever, whether it's a football anorak book or a Guinness book, but it's I think it is the biggest football bond ever launched. And it was just everyone working in the same direction. It was fantastic. So that was a real highlight, and it just made me think, well, this is why I'm I've come to be on the board to ensure this kind of stuff happens, and it's happening already. So why would we ever want to not tap up the fan base and the talents we've got when we want to achieve things?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Eh?
Yeah.
And look, we all know the biggest event of next year is going to be when we're all allowed to go back to football.
Oh yes, yeah, that one game.
That's everything that we do is towards that,
Mhm.
And towards that first game at Plough Lane.
So this is exciting, and it could go badly wrong, but we've never done this before. We're going to have a live poll, and we're going to ask everyone here what your highlight of the year was. So we've mentioned a couple. We're going to give you 4 options. They're on your screen, hopefully now. I'm going to vote for the Plough Lane bond and press submit. The options are Don's Local Action Group and the work they did, the Plough Lane bonds, the coming together of fans and the club, led by the fans, I must say. Staying up was a pretty good thing, and being back at Plough Lane, actually having a football match at Plough Lane. There are 4 options in our live poll for your highlight of the year. Luke and I have just shared ours, so let us know what yours were. And I don't know how we get the results.
Sorry, not the Don's. I said the Don's Trust Bond again, haven't I? That's terrible. I actually
did it again.
What I meant, yeah.
You stop doing that. I'm not sure how we get the result, but we'll come back to that.
How do we get there? We go. Oh,
there we go. Okay, so your highlight of the year, as it stands, the Plough Lane. Oh, I've won. I can't say I've won. I can't take credit for it, but people agree with me for once. Despite you trying to say it was the Don's Trust bond, it was the Plough Lane bond.
Can we extrapolate from this? And I did stats as part of my degree in economics, but only 5% were, staying in League One was a highlight. So does that mean that 95% don't mind if we go down?
I think that's a step too far. Let's focus on the Plough Lane bond was your highlight of the year. So once again, well done to Don's Local Action Group, well done to the Plough Lane bond, and well done to everyone involved. Charlie, Xavier, Cormac who was on earlier, Craig, Damien. I'm going to miss someone, so I'm just going to stop before I, exhaust her. We've looked back over most of the year, and there were some elections just recently, so now I guess we could look forward a bit, and we've got a new look board. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Now we've had our first few meetings with the new look board. What do you really think of them?
Oh,
they're not watching.
Individually? Yeah.
What do you think of the new board in general?
No other chat participants. I'm excited. What's nice, I think you've got some real people who have made a real difference to our supporter group, the local community, just us getting back to Plough Lane. And you've had an election where some well-known faces have been elected, but they're well-known because of the good work they've done. And they're proven activists, they're proven people who can deliver stuff they say, and bring it on, because it'll be very different. And I've noticed there's a question around co-chairs, and we'll come on to that a bit for Lauren. But I'm just really excited about the makeup of the board. I thought it was the best election we've had in years and years and years.
11 candidates.
11 candidates, and I think absolutely none of them would have not been welcomed at that first board meeting. I think they all defeated him, and I think everybody had a lot to offer, and it was a really, really strong election. So that was lovely to see.
Thank you to everyone who stood. I think it's a great thing to have. I've banged on about this, but contested elections, because the people who win then do have a mandate to do what they have promised, and then deliver on it. So that was great. I think it might be a good time, talking of new board. Someone got a few votes in that election. We should probably hear from her. So again, if the technology doesn't blow up and this works, could we see if Hannah's around?
This feels like a lot of pressure.
There you are.
Not exactly new board, though.
Sorry?
Not exactly new board.
When you and old, you're like you're smoothing the passage from the old ways to the new ways and something or other. But how's it feel? You got like a gazillion votes in the election. That was pretty cool. Congrats.
Yeah, I mean, it was very nice. I mean, a bit. like just listening to you talking about the highlights of the year, and the amount of stuff that people have achieved. I can't take really any of that credit, but I'm pleased to see that, like Luke was saying, that the people that have been behind those really fantastic initiatives are on the board and already feel kind of the momentum from them. It feels like a really energetic, we're really already getting stuff done, it feels, and moving in a good direction. So I'm excited for next year and the new board and to work with some new people as well.
Someone's just asked, actually, I think this is the first time we've had co-chairs of the Don's Trust board. How did the board arrive at that decision? And he capitalized that, so on that decision. How did we arrive at that decision? Well, we all agreed on it, didn't we? And it's like I think first of all we said, let's not wait until a January monthly meeting to nominate a chairman or a co-chair or a chair. Let's bring that forward. So we had some meetings and we had a vote, and I think we were unanimous pretty much, weren't we?
And it also, I think there was, we had a kind of relatively frank discussion as a board about the kind of what the responsibility of the chair has previously been and the level of work that it involved, and how we can pull together a lot more to share some of the responsibility and take away some of the work that doesn't necessarily need to be done by the chair. So I think there was a slight nervousness perhaps that we've got all of us have got jobs, having one person as a chair, it actually works really well to have co-chairs and sharing that burden. Play
to their strength. And we're lucky to have, well, Jane and Xavier have as I see it, very I've been in a monthly meeting that Jane's chaired, and I thought it was brilliant, and absolute confidence in her, making those meetings work and making us achieve things and driving us to achieve things. And I think Zab's obviously a leader, given what he's done with DLAG and so forth. And I think he'd be great as a line manager and so forth. He's used to leading thousands of volunteers in his spare time. So let's see what he can do line managing the football club now. So I'm very confident.
We're working on, and it's kind of been championed by Zav, is the thinking about how to take the learning essentially about mobilising volunteers from the Plough Lane Bond and through DLAG, and really kind of revitalising the volunteer base within the club, and working to support the club on match days, as well as in other areas, fundraising, and bringing in those expertise and creating a bit more of a formalised structure around our volunteers, and really just giving them a boost.
It's what we're built on. It's our core, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah, and do you know what? We talked earlier, didn't we, about the Don's Trust bond? Oh my gosh, that's the third time. The Plough Lane Bond. I really need to shoot myself. Talked about the Plough Lane Bond and the people that helped launch it and stuff, but that wouldn't have happened without 2,000-3,000 people putting in money into it, right? DLAG was started by several people. It wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for 2,000 or 3,000 people volunteering, and actually when we get down to the root of everything we do, it comes back to our members and what they can give, and it's fantastic. And it really is, and that's what separates us as a football club, I think, to anybody else. We have this real thing. So the volunteering stuff is fantastic, and if we can harness this energy and this passion to have, we're looking at 3 strands particularly. So I suppose it's a bit of a highlight because we're early days with it, but we're looking at your bog standard stadium match day volunteer. So if you go back to the early days of AFC Wimbledon, most of the stewards we had were all volunteers, etc. That's become a bit more professionalized, but we still have people in the cash offices working in turnstiles, etc. So we're going to have a need for that at Plough Lane. We're definitely going to need that match day volunteer. But what DLAG has shown is that we can have volunteers for so much other stuff as well. And the Plough Lane Bond. Yeah, you got it right. In terms of the door stoppers, the leaflet droppers, the people standing at stations, saying to people, look, we're back in Wimbledon, the football club's back, come and watch a game, here's a flyer, here's all that energy in the local community, and we can enhance that and use that. And then I think there's a real need for us to have professional skills brought to the forefront. And what was great about this election is you saw people who were willing to stand and put themselves out there, who offered skills that we don't have as a board. You know, and we could say, right, brilliant. Do you know what? You know loads of stuff about planning applications. Come, you know, we need to get you involved. You know, loads of stuff about expanding, you know, poor old Freddie out in America. I don't know how he was going to attend board meetings at 4 o'clock in the morning, but, you know, he was willing. And I think that's fantastic because actually he had a real skill set of expanding sports around the world and stuff. So can we use these people and others? Yes, of course we can. You know, what's nice is that we've got a finance committee set up now who are looking at basically how do we repay the debt? How do we transition from the bridging loan effectively that we've got into a longer term kind of finance arrangement? And these guys are volunteers. These are people that have seen an advert that we put out or have previously written into the Dons Trust board and said, look, I work in this area, I can help you. And we've brought them on board. So the more the merrier. And I think you'll see hopefully a real push from the club to try and engage some of those professional people and get those skill sets on board as well. You know, and even if it's just building up a database and a register to say, well, in 2 or 3 years time, well, we really need somebody who is a XYZ and we can call upon that. And never underestimate how many skills are in the fan base and that passion that our fans have.
Yeah, and as John Martin has just said, are you planning to utilise the expertise of Roger Hopkinson when looking at sweating the ground as an asset? And absolutely hope so. Would hope so. He knows his stuff. That was apparent in the elections, and I hope we're being. I think someone's been in touch, but they certainly will be. And as you said, Freddie, we've been in touch with. I think Charlie's touched base with him as well. So yeah, I mean, we've got such skills in that fan base. Hannah, are you all right to stay on with us?
Yep.
Yep.
Also,
cool. Good. Your jumper is quite a nice one. I'll ask you.
Yeah, even though George has had a go at me that it's not the
current one, is it?
Not the current one.
Not the current one, is it?
Which just goes to show they're good value. They last.
I mean, yeah. I don't know what year this was from.
Get your money's worth. We're good value, our shop. So you touched on it, things we're going to do, and looking forward to working with the new board. So let's talk priorities for 2021. What are you thinking they are or should be?
Well, I said it. I mean, I've said it when we were kind of announced that like who's on the board, but there is. So earlier on you were talking about your highlights for 2020. I think one of my highlights has been these sessions, and just like and also the fact that we've had board meetings online and gotten more digital and able to engage with members from a sort of wider group of our members than who would otherwise have been. And I'm excited and looking forward to using different formats like such as this for not just the kind of one-way dialogue with membership, but some two-way consultation. I know that Niall sort of like started doing some of that before being elected around sort of like consulting a wide group of people around what the future of the club should be. Now we're back at Plough Lane, we're in League One. What do the next 10 years look like? So a priority is kind of working out the agreed, sort of going out to members and agreeing that kind of roadmap for the club for the next 10 years.
Yes, and looking at it, there was an Excel sheet somewhere with our names next to that, by the way. I'm not sure if they were added. Was that you, Luke? Someone's just added our names on. Or was it you? I don't know, but our names are down. So I'm glad you look forward to doing that, because apparently we're doing it, which is good. I would echo that though, absolutely. So I think it's like finding out what our members want us to do and achieve and follow that.
You're right in what you said earlier, that you get elected on a platform. So Hannah had the most votes. Hannah's got the biggest platform and the biggest kind of membership drive, but Hannah's big thing is to engage with the members. and ask the members what they think. So, you know, it's not, you haven't elected somebody who's got their own opinions and wants to drive those forward. You've elected somebody who wants to listen to the membership and drive that forward. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Which, talking about fan engagement, we've had a lot of questions about this. There's one from John Martin, and I can see a few in the Q&A box, about the latest on Broncos, the London Broncos. So I think that's fairly straightforward. That's up to us to get a formal survey out. But as well as doing that, I think it's fair to say that the planning permission at the stadium's going in, so that if our members do say go ahead, we can go ahead, because we can't anyway without planning permission, and it takes a while. And I think it's a case of future-proofing our stadium. If we have planning permission for rugby games to take place at Plough Lane, then whether that's the final of the Rugby League World Cup 2028 as a one-off game, or it's London Broncos, we're covered. So I think it makes sense, it's prudent, isn't it, to get that planning permission in, which isn't going to happen overnight, but more, I think what the question is, what's the latest? It's in the ball's in our court. Is that right? We're asking the fans.
So those of you that are following closely, London Broncos didn't get elected into the Super League, so they'll have to strive for promotion or whatever that will look like in the coming few years. Hasn't meant the deal's off the table. Has, you know, meant the deal wouldn't be as lucrative for us as it possibly could have been, because a bit like the Premier League, more money comes with the higher up you go in those kind of circumstances. Certainly increased crowds, etc. However, as you say, the ball's in our court. We really need to work out a way. Our structure doesn't let us, and our constitution doesn't let us be that, I want to say, efficient in how we do things. So what we could do is we could call an SGM. We could have between 100 and 200 people attend an SGM, and then we could hold a formal vote, and we could get people to send in proxies, etc. And those 100 or 200 people will make a decision, which doesn't seem right to me. And I think we've all talked about it, that, you know, certainly there's going to be loads of disenfranchised people who, you know, don't have a computer, can't get online, can't witness these kind of meetings, so aren't up to speed with the sort of talk and what we've been doing. So it'd be nice to engage everybody. So we've talked about having an SGM type of meeting, hold a sort of just a single meeting on talking about the Broncos, the pros, the cons, sharing as much information as we can do, and then going out afterwards and having a formal vote on it. Just to kind of fill you in, we had about 1,600 people respond to the survey.
Which is big survey, isn't it?
Sorry?
That's big numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's generally the type of response rate we get, is about 1,600 people when we send out surveys. The biggest response we had was the matchday experience one, which is massive. That was pushing 3,000 people. But that doesn't surprise me, because that's the one people are really interested in and keen on. That affects everybody. So yes, we are pushing ahead with the Broncos stuff, but the ball is in your court as the membership, and we will have a kind of Q&A, probably a bit similar to this, maybe a bit more formal and not as many kind of like hats and
oh, come on. But
you know, so
another question, we're getting a few live questions, but I was sent this one in earlier, was January transfer window. This is the one everyone wants to know, isn't it? We've been sent this 7 times. Are we signing anyone? Someone's actually put, Dan Baker's actually been a bit more specific. Have we got room in the budget for a defender in the January sales? But generally, are we on the hunt for new players? Have we got a budget, I think is the question. I would sort of start off by saying we just signed Big Ben Hennigan, and recently, although he was available outside the window, which I think has been a good signing. Lucas Neal and Wako Jacko, or Wako Jarko, is that right? Jarko, isn't it? It's double A, Jarko.
Luke O'Neill as well, as opposed
Luke
to
O'Neill and Jack. It's not Jacko, is it? Jarko. I can't say it. There's Jarko, isn't it? It's Jarko. Anyway, but there'll be like new signings, I think, because they're well, Jarko's just come back, and Luke O'Neill is not far off. So that's good. But are we going to sign anyone? I asked Joe Palmer, and I think the gist is we would like to. It's I think he basically said, you know, we do have a small squad. We would have liked to have had a bigger squad if we'd had a bit more budget, early, you know, in the previous transfer window. So it is a case of watch this space. So yeah, that's.
I think it seems like a good time to do the second poll, not to take over your airing. I've seen a comment from Stuart saying we shouldn't be spending any more money with no fans at games.
Oh, well, that's you're saying it's time for a live poll. Is that what you're getting at? Okay, well, let's see then. Let's see. So let's put this up. What should we do? Should we be signing players? Should we up our transfer budget to ensure survival in League One this year? As much of a guarantee as signing players is. Should we put any spare money into Plough Lane, into all the trimmings there? And or should we aim to spend as little as possible on anything until there's a bit more certainty in the world, which is, I think, what you're saying, Stuart's getting at, is it? Play the youth.
So these are you think these are funny little polls that we're doing, but actually this is a deep kind of psychometric test.
We are actually basing.
You're making the decision for us.
This is it. This is our soon to be. Oh, I haven't voted. I voted, but that gets rid of the poll. I hope it comes back, because it comes back after 60 seconds or something. Cool. Well, that's our transfer budget meeting negated. We don't need that. That's done. That's policy. So I think. Oh, there we go. Should we spend as little on anything, as little as possible? Did I type that? There's a typo in there. It should be as little as possible on anything, not as little on anything as possible. Well, that kind of works. But that's the winner with 50%. Although Luke would say that 50% also voted for putting money into Plough Lane and upping the transfer budget. So I think we should do all of them, really. But yes, there we go. That's what we'll do.
What? In all seriousness, we joke about this, and it was a silly little thing just to get some impressions. But our fan base are realistic in the main. In the main, and actually, you know, we're struggling. Let's not beat around the bush. You know, the forecast of the loss that we will make this year is massive. But what do you do? We you know, you have to plough on, don't you? And we've budgeted to survive the season. Goodness knows what happens if this goes on late into 2021. The vaccine doesn't work, etc. Everybody's got their hands tied behind their back, but we're not certainly at the phase. So some of you may have seen that there's the thing about the Premier League are offering loans out to clubs, so who are in trouble, basically almost a survival loan, which is to be repaid. It's not a grant, so it is a loan. We did get a grant from the Premier League, which was fantastic help, but there is a loan that has been offered to clubs who are in financial difficulty just to help them stay afloat. We've budgeted not to take that loan. So our budget does survive till the end of the season, based on 0 fans being there. So, albeit we'll obviously need to reassess in the summer.
Yep. Cool. Right. So we're nearly coming up to the hour mark. So I think we've got a few live questions. Maybe we could rattle through a few, if everyone's up for that. And if they're really awkward, because I haven't read them all yet, code word, safe word is cabbages or something, and we'll move on. Okay, Stuart Deacons, what's your view on the current situation in League One with games constantly being postponed? The longer we go into this season, the more challenges we will have. Fair question. You know, we mentioned earlier whether the season should have begun or not. It's debatable. But yeah, it seems, is it about like half of the games are now being cancelled this weekend or next round? I don't know. Are we going to make it to the end of the season? Should we have started the season? They seem determined to plough on, don't they? Regardless of tiers and so forth. So
I mean, increasingly they're talking about having a two-week break, right?
Yeah.
Whether that materialises.
Allardyce had a really interesting point, didn't he? That he's 66, and you know, actually he doesn't want to get it. And he's quite in the vulnerable category or sort of age category, you know, and I don't blame him. I think it's a scary thing, and credit to the players and the management team who go in knowing those risks, you know, as well, because they're going to work every day. There's a lot of people sitting at home on their laptops, you know, feeling safer than they would do going into the office, whereas our guys have to go into the office and have to travel around the country, you know, travel on coaches, stay in hotels. Yeah. And so sort of that's a level of bravery that I think not everybody sees, but it's certainly there. But yeah, somebody said in the comments something they can the season. I almost would do. I'm not sure I would have started the season, genuinely.
No, it's the health, but we've had our COVID, you know, in the camp and stuff, and yeah, it's player health and everything.
So much more important.
Right, Edward, yeah. Edward Barron, once the tier system is open, will the pub? Everyone wants to know about the pub. It's either transfers or pubs, isn't it? To be fair, I'm backing you all the way on those. Will the pub at New Plough Lane, naughty, just Plough Lane, be open? And should we veto this for the use of New Plough Lane, because it's you know, got to be on brand here. Once the tier system is over, will the pub at Plough Lane be open, and will stadium tours be available for a nominal sum from the bar? There's a lot to take in there. That's a very specific question. I think the answer is the pub will be as open as soon as we're allowed to open it, pretty much. I mean, unless they said, yeah, you can open it tomorrow, in which case, yeah, we're not quite there. But I don't think it's that far off. It won't be that far off, will it? And will stadium tours be quiet? Luke knows.
I'm laughing at New Plough Lane, because when we did the filming before the first game, I called it current Plough Lane, because I desperately avoided saying New Plough Lane. So when old Plough Lane's over there, and we're now at current Plough Lane. Although
the current Plough,
I'll call it the Don's Trust Lane or something. So, you know. So there we go. But yeah, the pub's going to be great. And there's going to be some exciting news, fingers crossed. Hopefully, I think the contracts are pretty much there and some have been signed, some are about to be signed, for some of the stuff that's going to be there. And I think it will be really good.
The food and drink thing, I know you've been involved in heavily, and everything I've seen from that looks very exciting, and it looks like we're just delivering what people have asked for, from what I can tell, which is amazing to be able to do that, which you can't always. But yeah. John Martin, hello again, John. Not wishing to fry Doom's brain with finances, cabbages, but could you give us a broad outline of the current level of debt and the approximate interest rate? Who can do that?
Charlie's in the chat, so I'm thinking Charlie is going to jump in now and say the average. I think the average of the Plough Lane bond is just over 2.5%.
Yeah, and that's up to 5.5 and 11 billion as of this morning. 5.5 million.
Here he is.
Is he in there? Is he diving in?
Oh God! Hello.
There he is.
Hello.
Where's your jumper?
I'm not even supposed to be here. Yeah, thanks, Luke. It got the bond's got to 5.5. When the bond was at about 4, I think it averaged at 2, but don't quote me on that. As it got up to 5.5, I think the average has gone up a bit. I think it's between 2 and 3. Obviously, in terms of the debt picture, the biggest and the most immediate issue is that we have drawn down, or the club rather, have drawn down on the 4 million in bridging financing, and that's where the interest rates are highest, and that's also where, if you think about the order of debt and the things we need to repay first and refinance first, that's what we'll be looking to solve first. So that the first thing on the desk of the new finance committee, and in fact we had a call tonight working on this. So there's a refinance committee, and there'll be a refinancing business plan being put together to take stuff out to lenders or possible, investors and other sources of that financing that will go out in 2021, because that 4 million from the commercial lenders, which is the final piece of the jigsaw, that falls due for refinancing in the second quarter of 2022. But rather than continually, as we've had to do everything, obviously very much based on the short term at the moment. The Plough Lane bond was very much a short term need and a short term fix, which we put together very quickly. So what we'd look to do here is not just to look at what's the solution now to refinance that, but to start putting a plan in place for the second tier and the third tier, and sort of to keep going at each of the stages that happen. Sorry, I see John just asked a question at the same time there, which I now can't find because I'm in the middle of talking. Can you tell me what John just asked? John just asked something about refinancing it. It popped up, but I can't.
Can we offset some of the bridging loan with the loans offered by the Premier League?
Not really, is my understanding. In the short term, no. What we can potentially look to do is to look again at what we've done with the plough lane bond. Obviously, also once we've looked at this refinancing window that comes in 18 months' time, the next window is in about another 4 years' time, when the first tranche of the plough lane bonds fall due. But we suspect, or indeed we know, that a lot of people who took out 5-year bonds did so sort of partly to have that 5-year break clause in. Some people may be happy to roll those over. And we can also potentially therefore look to go back round the bond again. The upside of being able to offer 4 or even 3% as a bond is that to people who have got savings, that's actually now a relatively appealing rate, but obviously much better for the club. I don't think it would be a simple case of porting over the Premier League loan. As you can tell, I'm more of a front man for financiers rather than a financier myself, John. So I'll check with people who know more than that. But the aim would really be to look around, not just a quick, oh God, we've got to refinance that 4 million, but we're actually exploring options with lenders or ways of financing that over a longer term. So we look then at when that first 5-year window falls due, and we look at providing longer term solutions than that. So we have, relatively speaking by our standards, the luxury of about 18 months of a window before that first next bit of the ticking clock comes in. So that's good. I appreciate that was a bit of a broad answer, but it's very much, as someone else asked about priorities, I think really there are 4 priorities for the year ahead. One is the operational and resource structure in place for the club and the operating boards to deliver the fit out of Plough Lane and to give us the stadium and to monetize that asset that we all need it to be. One is looking at a governance overview and a structural overview of how the club and trust and boards are all constructed. Thirdly, of course, the strategy review that got kicked a bit into the long grass, but is pretty key. And then finally, the fourth part, which really picks into what John was saying, is financing, not just going, oh, what do we need right now, but putting a refinancing and a business plan in place for the next 10 years. That means we can go out to investors and to other people and to find sources of finance to bring that in. And those last 3 all have to be done at the same time. In normal circumstances, you'd say they need to be done pretty urgently. By our standards, I think the fact that we've probably got about 6 months to a year to do them in is positively relaxing, because this time last year we launched the bond over Christmas in about a fortnight. So we've got months this time, so that will be easy, right?
And will the Plough Lane bond keep going, or is it going to be closed off? Can people give us
the Plough Lane bond will keep going as it is at the moment? It will be finite. We've kept it open. It's still open at the moment, as people will probably have seen. We actually got a couple of 100,000 came in just before Christmas. It will stay open through this period, and we'll probably look to close it off early-ish next year. So there's probably one more deadline to work towards. But basically, fundamentally, it still remains one of by far the best source of debt financing that we have access to. So providing a return for fans or indeed non-fans through that is obviously very helpful and very advantageous to everything else that the club do, because the less the club has to spend on servicing debt, and as we said, that last 4 million is at the top of the debt pile and is the most expensive bit of debt, the easier everything else becomes.
Brilliant. Excellent. How's that for a bonus? Thanks very much. Bring a jumper next time. But
can I go now?
You can tell he was put on the spot because he's not wearing his jumper, is he?
No, shocking. Shocking lack of preparedness.
I was in the middle of doing the washing up, actually. But can I get back
nice
to it
one.
now?
No, thanks for that. Yeah, brilliant. But do wear a jumper or have one on standby next time, yeah?
Look, there's a Christmas tree. There you go. Thank you.
That'll do. Good job. Cheers, Charlie. Nice one. Thanks a lot. Well, that's I think that is about our hour. I think, and we've answered most questions that have come our way. We didn't have to use our safe word too many times. I think we've got time for one last poll, maybe, just because I like this format. So Shall we see who everyone thinks is wearing the best Christmas jumper?
Sorry. Before we, you put the poll up too quick. I was just going to show that mine is actually 3D.
Yeah, Luke's.
It's not Wimbledon though, is it?
It's not Wimbledon, but I do have a carrot. And in fact,
Luke, the camera angle is not working for me, man.
reminds me of Ivor at the thing the other night. The AGM, Ivor was kind of in a lounge, laid back position, wasn't he? So there we go. Anyway,
let's hand that one over to the members. Who's wearing the best get up? Is it Luke's carrot, Hannah's vintage Wimbledon, or mine nothing to do with Wimbledon, but I've got sparkly lights and a hat. So yeah.
Did you
I think Jane asked earlier whether that's a Wombells hat.
It is a Wombells hat. Oh, that's what I got off. Yeah.
I voted for Hannah because you just got to. It's the law nowadays. It's oh, I haven't pressed submit though. Oh, there you go. Let's see. She's on a winning streak. When do they come up? Maybe they don't. We're finally blowing it up. Well, in that case, oh yeah, obviously.
Yes.
It's a fix. I think. Is it fair to say at this point Hannah's in charge of the technology and can completely manipulate results? I don't know.
No, I can't. It's George.
It's George.
I'm just disappointed with the
George very well.
There we go.
Oh well. Well, right. Well, I think that is, as I say, that is everything. We've had live votes. We've had special guests. We've had. We've talked about the year that was, highs and the lows and everything. I guess.
Sorry, Graham. I was just going to jump in. Do you want to just touch on the question? There's one open question, which is actually a really decent question.
I think Charlie's. Oh no, there he's gone. Sorry. It was feedback from Charlie.
So another important development this year has been the Black Lives Matter movement. Do we know why our players don't take the knee? And if you don't know why, can this be raised and fans be told? I genuinely don't know why, and I don't know whether they do or don't, because I never get onto iFollow.
No.
It seems to start just at sort of about 2 minutes into the game for me. But
what I do know is that it's up to the players. It's not a club thing that we will or will not or anything. There's no dictum. It's entirely up to the players. I didn't know that they didn't, and I'm not sure that they don't, in fact. And if we haven't seen it, as you say, it's because iFollow doesn't often work. I mean, doesn't often kick in until kickoff. But yeah,
George has said that they take the knee for some games, but not every game.
Right. Okay. But it is up to the players, so as appropriate as they feel, and there's no pressure one way or the other from us. We obviously believe in equality and support equality at basically every level, but we're not telling the players what they should and shouldn't do during a game. So I hope that answers that. But if you do want to find out more, and for us to find out more and to give you a more complete answer, a prepared answer, do email us, and we can do that as goes with everything, as goes with the whole session. If you've got any feedback, do send it to, you can contact us on Twitter at The Dons Trust, or you can send an email to contact@thedonstrust.org. Thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight. Thank you to the elf with a funny carrot, Luke, Hannah, Charlie, Cormac, George, who you probably can't see, I don't know, but he's helping us with all the technology and polls and things that all worked, which is good. There is a next DTB, Meet the DTB, on Wednesday, January the 27th, and that will be with new Dons Trust Board co-chairs, Jane Lonsdale MBE, and probably by then Sir Xavier Wiggins, I expect. I wouldn't put it past him. He's had a busy year, and now he's topped it all off by being named co-chair. So what greater honour is there anyway, I suppose. That's on January 27. We'll be emailing and posting on social media more details on that. This session was recorded. If you've just joined us, I don't know what you're thinking, but you're very late. But it will be on We'll put a link on Pro Boards in the next few days. So that's it. We've our festive special of sorts. All that's left to say, I think, is have a happy new year, and we cannot wait to be at a game at Plough Lane with you all. Thanks everyone for joining,
everybody.
guys.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks.